It did turn light.
Woohoo!
All right, so hello everybody. I am Dan, and I'm here with Shay.
Hi everyone.
Is it pronounced Shay?
Yes.
Awesome. And I was curious about how to get started with Awesome Learning, Wayfair's sort of open source learning platform situation. So Shay is here to help guide me through that process. I'm literally starting from nothing. I have no idea what's going on here. So we're gonna probably speed up parts of this video for sanity's sake, but you'll see all the bits and pieces that you have to do to get started with this thing.
Cool. I'm excited to do this.
Thank you for coming. So the first question I have, I see two repos here. Awesome Learning Exercises. Why is there two? What's up with that?
So originally we wanted to have it this way to easily maintain two different parts of Awesome Learning. The first thing, which is Awesome-Learning, that is where our actual site lives. That's run with Gatsby, and that is if you go to wayfair.github.io/awesome-learning. That is like the website platform that you interact with. You do quizzes here. This has pre-read materials. This is sort of the catalog, the front of house.
Okay.
The second repository is awesome-learning-exercises. That is where we put all of our code exercises. When we want to vet your knowledge, that is where the second repo comes. We're going to be combining these repos into one house just to make it easier for people to contribute in the near future, in the next couple of weeks or so. So this will eventually become two repos. So if you're seeing this after the fact...
Become one repo.
Yes, into one repo, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So these two repositories will both be underneath the awesome-learning repo, and this second repository will not be maintained any longer.
Okay, cool. I think that kind of sort of makes sense. So if I was to say I'm like going through an Awesome Learning course, we'll start kind of easy, and I see something that I want to modify on a course. How would I go about like contributing? You know, this is open source. I want to contribute. I want to help people out. I see a typo or something. How would I go and change that?
Sure. So in these sorts of files, these are YAML files, and Gatsby consumes those YAML files and it turns it into Markdown. I think it's MDX. I forget the exact name of the format.
Okay.
But it transpiles this YAML into Markdown on the page, which is kind of cool.
Okay.
And if you want to actually edit a lesson, you can do that pretty easily. If you go to the GitHub, the main GitHub, that's the
so
second
not the
GitHub.
exercise.
Yep,
Okay.
so that one.
Yep.
So all of our lessons are under the content folder,
Okay.
and then lessons.
Lessons.
And these lessons are broken up by their parent course. So, for example, you're on the right one. If you want to change the array methods course, for example,
Yep.
and a specific lesson for each, this is the YAML file which has all the information about this lesson.
Oh,
and
interesting.
GitHub formats it a little bit weirdly. If you click on raw, it'll give you a better way to actually view it, because GitHub will auto-format the YAML, but this is the YAML you really want to deal with. So every lesson has the same sort of parameters. There's the title of the lesson, what template it follows. We have different YAML files for different things.
Yeah.
So Gatsby expects a certain template for that.
I could just edit this.
Well, it'll make a fork.
And
so you can edit it and you can
give
see
me
it,
the
but it'll
pull
create
request.
a fork.
Okay.
So the raw is probably the easy way just for me to guide you through what's going on.
Cool. So I could either edit here and that'll do the whole forking and stuff for me, or I can do it the regular way by cloning. Let's go ahead and clone it.
Let me do this. Switch over item. I'm in my learning. Format. And things. Bam. And then. Cool.
And then I have a bunch of stuff here. I assume I'm going to need to... So you said this is a Gatsby site.
Yes.
Meaning Gatsby is a static site generator, right? So there's no server. It's kind of serverless. Obviously, it's on GitHub Pages. It's sort of a serverless kind of setup, right?
That's correct. So while we're developing, we do have a GraphQL graph that we can use to interact with data from the Markdown files. That is to say, if you change a Markdown file, you can query that information as if it was GraphQL.
Gotcha.
That lets us sort of test data, experiment with it.
But all of that GraphQL and Node and everything is at sort of build time with Gatsby, right? And then it generates just a very static site?
That is correct.
Right?
What we're seeing now on wayfair.github.io, this is a static site. There's no server, there's no GraphQL, there's none of that. Gatsby takes care of all of that information for us at compile time, and it spits out a bunch of static files.
Gotcha. Okay. That's a tough sort of concept to wrap my mind around, but let me npm install.
Yep.
Yarn, I guess, still not on the yarn boat because npm came first in my mind. It's about the same now, right? I think so. I forget the exact differences in my head, but I believe that heroic Roku actually works better with yarn files and package block files. I know that there are like, I know they do different things better. I just forget what they are off the top of my head. I personally use just a package block file. It's just one less package to deal with. Okay, yeah. I know there's a contributing guide here, so this is probably good to read first so that I know what I should be contributing, what I shouldn't be contributing. Release December, that's good to know. Good standards, responsibility scope. That looks really nice.
The README has more information as well about like how to get started and run the site locally in your computer. So you're already part way there where you've dove in, you've done the npm install, and now it's just...
Okay, cool. I could just follow these directions, and they'll probably be more up to date than this video even. So...
Look, it's doing post install. If you also do npm run develop, it should do the exact same thing.
It will run Gatsby develop for me?
Yes.
Cool. And then that should fire up Gatsby on my local host, and gives me a GraphQL endpoint. That's cool. And so you're saying I can query the content of the page through GraphQL?
Yeah, so once it loads up, you'll actually see like a whole GraphQL, a graphical playground. So you'll be able to put in query information, like say I want to get all the information about a certain lesson or all the lessons. You could do that through GraphQL.
Cool. And I could play with that through this like dev website.
Yep.
That's cool. Gatsby tutorial.
And it hot reloads. So whenever you make a change, it'll reflect instantly.
That's nice.
While that's happening, I can talk a little bit more about, I guess, the structure of an awesome learning course.
Sure.
So every course is one large topic. So that's array methods, that's data types, that's unit testing, and we recently just launched a React hooks course. And so every course sort of comprises different lessons within it that are on different things as part of that. So like the data types course, for example. You click any one of those, they all have different lessons inside of them.
Where's the hooks? Oh, here we go.
Yep, so hooks only has one lesson right now. And that was like the very basic get people up and running with hooks lesson. But like data types, for example, is more comprehensive.
Okay.
And they're meant to be differently structured and focus on different things. So for example, the first lesson, types and inequality, is like double equals versus triple equals, coercion, and figuring out why certain variables do weird things of each other. Like the number 1 plus the string equal to 1 equals something weird. Versus the number 1 minus the string 1 does something totally wacky. Like, why does that happen? That's an example of a lesson, which comprises a quiz and it comprises exercises and pre-read materials to help you get to that point in time as well.
Okay, so it's kind of 2 levels deep. You got the main things you can learn, and then within those you have lessons, and that will target. That's so when I'm thinking about how I would create my own course, say I'm creating a new one on, I don't know, Gatsby. Maybe I make a Gatsby course. I would make the Gatsby heading, and then how narrow are the individual courses? You said individual, so this one's lesson? Like types and inequality.
Individual lessons or individual courses?
Lessons, yeah.
So a lesson can be different. It depends on the scope of the course that it's under. So data types is a sort of a broad subject, and that can be one of different things. So if you go back a page to just a lesson, the course overview, we take that to mean 2 distinct things that take toward 2 different lessons. Data types mean different things when we talk about equality versus objects, and we wanted to highlight those as self-contained units. So for example, if you were familiar with types and equality and you felt comfortable with that, you wouldn't have to relearn it again just to learn about object equality and why it's weird in JavaScript, like pass by reference, pass by value.
So for example, would a good one be, I could add something here about like symbols.
Yeah, well.
And then that would be a good like scoped thing where we learn all about symbols.
Sure. So that would be like that's a newer data type with JavaScript.
Yeah.
And you could teach people all about what is a symbol, maybe even like a set too. I think a set is catching steam.
Sets and maps.
Yes.
Weak sets, weak maps.
But that would be another good example of a lesson inside of this, like why you would use a set or a map over an array or an object.
Actually, that would be a great one. I kind of actually want to do that.
Let's pop back to the terminal to see if that's maybe
headway. We got npm audit to fix for vulnerabilities. Okay.
Yes, you can see what's happening here is that Gatsby is running through the GraphQL queries that we specified, and it's turning those queries, it's querying the markdown files that we have in our lessons and courses and whatnot, and it's converting that into static data. So eventually when we do like npm run build, it'll convert those into completely static files, and then GitHub Pages just serves those as is.
So it's kind of like generating HTML files off of a database, but the database is actually just these like YAML or these markdown, the content in the markdown files.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Gatsby is the server when we need it to be, but it itself is not doing a lot on GitHub pages itself. It is in charge of the compilation. And here we go.
Cool, we did it. Okay, awesome. All right, let's get into this then. So then, yeah, so if I want to add something to this page, what's the best way to find that? I guess it's in, we said it before, right? It's in courses, content, courses, data types.
Yep.
Oh, but this is just the top level course.
Yes,
Okay.
but this is where you would add, for example, a link to a new lesson. So you see that lessons has a formatted list of lessons.
Gotcha.
And
so
there's one element for every lesson. So you'd copy paste that.
Command Shift D, one of my favorites, which actually works in, I think, Code Sandbox and CoderPad too.
Yeah.
All right, so what is this link?
So the link is like the slug that goes
got
to
it. Okay.
courses / datatypes / whatever. So
let's say
symbol would be a
symbols.
good example.
Sweet. Description,
That's just what it shows up with the lesson.
learn symbols.
Cool.
And then, do I get,
Bam.
hot,
And if you go there, nothing will
live,
happen because you
spicy
haven't included
reload. Okay.
If you go there, it'll 404 just because there's nothing there.
Hey.
It's a beautiful 404 page.
That's, yeah, you guys should put like something interesting there.
It's a good issue.
Okay, so then where do I, so then where do I link
Yep, so you want to
how
go to
get in
lessons over here,
there? Okay.
and then you were going to
Content
datatypes.
lessons,
And you want to
data
make
types.
a file with the same exact name as the link. Because
Okay.
Gatsby will create the route based off your directory structure and the naming of the files.
Okay.
So you want to match the name exactly. So yep, that's symbols.md. And if you
then
copy
it's
just anything over.
Gonna look something like this. So it's like Markdown.
This is Markdown. This is Markdown, but it's compiled. It's a YAML file that is converted into Markdown.
Okay, so it's basically like key value things that the GraphQL can query.
Yes.
Okay, so
It's like a human readable JSON.
okay, that kind of makes. Why not just use JSON?
Easier
to write, easier to write and read.
Human readable
Yeah.
is the important thing.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Draft. What does that do?
So draft is if you don't want anybody to see it, you're working on it internally. This will make it so you can't actually access the course. So leave that for false.
Okay.
Slug, you'll want to change the slug to symbol. Symbols. Everything here should match.
Okay. Title, probably symbols. Capital. Template. What's that?
So again, there's different YAML files that do different things. So
Okay.
this YAML file represents a lesson.
Okay.
The courses Markdown file has a template for course. We use different YAML files for different things.
Okay. And I see it references the course above here too, so we need to change these, I assume?
Nope. So you should keep that as.
Oh, I'm in
because-
data types. That's
yes,
right.
you keep that is the exact same.
What does this do?
So that is just like the parent course. It's like it's relating this lesson to the data types course.
But that's just kind of for information in this file. It doesn't actually like change anything on the site, right?
I don't know that, to be
Or maybe
honest. I
there's
have to remember.
breadcrumbs?
But
Can I click into this now? No.
I forget to save the file.
Oh. Okay.
Let me refresh. Okay.
Refresh. That looks different somehow.
Oh, you got
Oh
an error.
no.
Interesting. Okay.
Page of
Go back
undefined.
for a sec.
Okay.
Save this file. Can you go? Oh, I see there's a typo here.
Oh.
Symbols. And I believe that the title should match exactly. So go back to the objects markdown file. Just want to see something quickly.
Yeah.
The objects one.
Sorry. This one.
Okay, so yeah. The title of it doesn't matter, but the slug has to match exactly. The slug
Okay.
should match. So
Okay. So the
symbols, that should be good now.
I can capitalize that.
Okay.
Boop.
Bam.
Hey. Now we get to learn all about symbols. Oh, it generated the YouTube video.
So
No, this is all the old one. Okay.
this is now your lesson on symbols. You can change the
So
description,
do something here.
video links.
Time. Oh, that's cool. So this is a separate data point that you could actually sort of potentially in the future you could query this average time to complete courses separately or something like that.
Yeah, it's an estimate. It's like on average, how long would it take for an engineer to complete this course?
Yeah,
38 hours is a lot.
Video links.
So one thing to call out here is this is the embed code for the video, not like a direct hyperlink, but notice how it's youtube.com/embed/the
okay.
video code.
Yeah.
So just important to call out.
Cool. And video links is going to render always under a specific session, or how does that work?
What do you mean?
Video links, like what is this for? What does this translate to
So
on the page?
like that video there is you just saw that video. So go back to the page. That is that video right there.
But what if I wanted a video like here?
That you can't change. It could be something that we may want to change in the future, but currently we have videos, then pre-read materials.
Gotcha. Okay, so every lesson follows the same sort of structure where it's like video,
Yes.
materials,
Yep.
pre-read, exercises, feedback.
Yep.
Cool. That makes sense. I don't know why it would be different. Cool, so I can do that. Okay, so this is
there's
a
two
link
different
to
things
a
here.
form.
We have a pre-read quiz link and a pre-read quiz. We originally had all of our pre-read quizzes to test your knowledge as Google Forms.
Okay.
We've been in the process of moving those over to having those be embedded in our site. So if you see the pre-read quiz later in this file, so on line 30, this is a YAML formatted quiz.
And this will generate an actual HTML form that is the quiz.
Exactly. So if you can actually take the quiz right now if you wanted to. So if you go back to the browser.
Ooh, should we test my knowledge?
Sure. So scroll down the page a little bit and click on pre-read quiz link.
All right.
There you go. So this is a self-formatted quiz on objects, but it says symbols.
Yes.
But you can change all the questions, all the answers. It supports checkboxes, radios. It supports code snippets. Have as many questions as you want. It's pretty flexible.
Okay.
It's also built in hooks.
Is there documentation on how this works if I want different types of questions?
There's only two types of questions. There's just checkbox and radio.
Okay.
Those are the only two that are supported right now.
Okay.
And you could certainly add more types if you wanted to. Those are just the most common questions that we had.
So it's description, explanation, type, choices, value. Okay.
The only thing to call out here
not
is
too
that
bad.
correct choices corresponds to the correct choice 0 indexed. So this is the second. This is 0, 1, 2.
The
It's
third
immutable
item
by default.
is the correct answer.
Yes, just because it's like a JavaScript array, it's the same sort of methodology.
JavaScript objects are non-primitive. What does this mean? It's mutable. It's a mutable value by default, which can be modified. Huh, that's an interesting question. It's a compound value? I don't even know what that means. Compound value? Oh, composed of other primitives. Okay. That's not what non-primitive means. It's a mutable value by default, which means it cannot be modified. That's not true. Non-primitive means mutable by default. Okay, fair enough.
Okay. So that's like an example of a quiz, and you can add your own questions, add as many as you want to, and at the end, if you actually go back to the browser, it'll validate the questions for you. So go to the bottom and hit submit quiz. It'll tell you like question that got wrong or right. It'll give you the reason why that answer is the way it is.
Awesome, that's really helpful. So then is the data of the results sent anywhere, or is this just
Nope.
just
only,
for me?
Only you ever see it. There's no analytics behind this.
That's great. That's cool. Okay. So the bulk of everything that I want to do is just sort of look at what other things are doing and kind of change. Is there anything that's not in this lesson that is possible, or is there a way to see the domain of all the different types of things I could have in this file?
Most of this stuff sort of changes from lesson to lesson. The only things I would ever say the same are like template lesson, draft is false. Default tab might change. So for example, the React hooks course, in Code Sandbox, almost every other lesson defaults to the tabs tab in Code Sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
But for React hooks, we're focusing on interactions in the browser. So we want to open the browser and not the tests tab.
Yeah.
So that's something that could change. In the quiz itself, you can embed a code snippet, and it'll have a pre-formatted code snippet for you.
Oh, how do you do that?
It's just a code snippet. So you can see on line
Got
51,
it. Yep.
you had the pipe,
What's
and
the
then everything below
slash?
that pipe is a snippet of code.
Is this slash necessary?
Huh? It's a pipe. It's not a slash.
Oh, that's a pipe?
Yeah.
That's a pipe. I think it's a slash. Nope, it's not a slash either. What is this? My
it's a
font
pipe.
is weird, so let me erase it and write a new pipe. Yep, you're right. It's a pipe. It's a pipe that my my font Dank Mono is rendering as italic because it thinks it's something special. Okay, that's confusing. Snippets begin here. Snippets end. I like the emojis. That's cool. Good use of Unicode. Okay. Is there anything else to call out? Any other values?
Not really here. Again, like you'll change almost everything from lesson to lesson. So like tags, it's an array of tags. This is just React as a tag, for example. Default tab is the only thing that get really changed from lesson to lesson. Time to completion is just like an estimate of how long you think it would take an engineer to reasonably complete a lesson. Video links are going to change. Reading links are going to change. Prerequisites are going to change. Pretty much everything here will change from lesson to lesson.
Yeah. Okay.
And only sometimes will things be one of a limited number of values. Like default tab can only be tests or browser.
Okay. What? I don't actually quite understand the default tabs thing. So if I go to...
Okay, so if you go to the hooks course, for example.
Yes.
And then go to the learn React hooks. Go to the bottom of the page. Click here to start your exercises. What's going to happen here is that in the URL, you can see that the preview window is browser. And on Code Sandbox, you have two different tabs. You have the browser tab and the tests tab.
Okay, so we didn't even get into this. So this is a whole different thing. So this must be where if I look at the URL, yeah, Awesome Learning Exercises comes in.
Yeah, so this won't exist because there's no symbols repository in the other repositories. It is 404s. But if you go back like to objects, for example.
Yeah. Or go back to objects here.
Yeah, so if you go to any other lesson, it will go to the tests tab, just because that's the way it is. So go to exercises.
And it loads up Code Sandbox with tests.
Yep, so here it goes to the tests tab by default. That is the expected behavior.
Cool.
We have unit tests that will verify your knowledge and completion of the tasks that we've set for you.
This is awesome. So this is where, so the bulk of like intro, how to get ramped up on stuff is all in one repo. And again, these are combining at some point.
Yes.
But then the actual exercises is all in the other repo. Should we take a look at that repo?
Sure. Well, you're actually already here. You're in the lessons repo. You're in an example of a lessons repo itself.
So, okay. I want to look here though. I want to see like how, so if I was to do my like symbols one, right? And I go to, I go here.
So the structure is very similar.
Yeah,
so
okay.
the top level directory here is each course. So there's array map, it's data types, whatever. And you would then add your exercises for your lesson inside of that. So we have objects, types, and equality. And again, the naming format should match exactly. The thing to call out here is that what happens here is that if you go to the Code Sandbox again and look at the URL, you'll notice that is codesandbox.io/s/github/wayfair/awesome learning exercises.
Yes.
Tree, master, data types, types and equality, and that is where it consumes all the information from.
Yep,
and if you notice in the browser, on the left-hand side of the file browser, all of those will match what you see in GitHub. Code Sandbox is essentially pulling that information directly from GitHub. If you make a change here, it's going to fork this as a Code Sandbox fork. So like the changes will not be reflected on GitHub, but you'll have a local copy of this that you can change, and you'll be able to mess around with it forever.
Okay, so then it just turns into a normal one that was just seeded off of the actual GitHub.
Yes.
That's really cool. I didn't know Code Sandbox could do that.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So I was getting these two things. What is exercises and solutions? So does each lesson have exercises and solutions?
Yep. So the idea is that when you have a code exercise, you want to vet the knowledge and also like show people what the right solution is, what we believe your solution should be.
Okay.
And so what you'll do is you'll write out the guidance to the user, to the engineer. Here's what you want you to do. If it's a unit test-based lesson, that doesn't have to be. But if it's a unit test-based lesson, you'll write out unit tests that will pass when the engineer writes out the correct code to pass that condition. And then you'll also write the solutions that will make that test pass.
Exercise. Got it. And so, okay. So this, and the solution is just obviously just all filled out and all the tests are passing.
Yep.
Cool. And so if sorry, I might have missed. So if I go back in here, how do I see the answers? They're another
so they'll
file
be
in
here.
here.
So if you go to solutions above package.json file,
here,
and you see the solutions that correspond to each part of the exercise.
Got it. That's super handy. So I can cheat, but that's obviously I'm not going to learn a lot if I cheat. So I should try and do it.
It's hard to cheat too. Like
the
you
solution.
You can't copy paste it as is. There's a little bit of formatting to do, but
Okay.
it's like a pulse check. Like
Sure.
you complete the exercise and then
Yeah.
you look at the part one. You see, okay, they matched up, or you still solved it but in a different way.
Yep,
Which is totally
yep,
okay.
yep. Yeah, totally. Cool. This is actually really awesome and not too difficult.
And this will be easier once we move things into the same repo.
So I don't have to
you won't
clone
have
two
to contribute
repos
to.
and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, you
But
won't-
in the meantime, if I wanted to just come up with this content, I can just do that in Code Sandbox, and then when I'm ready, I can pull all of this content and just throw it into the repo, and it should be there and like ready to use, right?
Exactly, and then the cool thing is that you can even check how it looks from if you pull it from GitHub for a URL. So again, you can do like GitHub/Wayfair/awesome learning exercises. You could use your own fork. You could use your own repo.
Oh,
and
so
then
sort
you
of like a dev site, sort of verify that it's showing correctly in Code Sandbox and all that. Yeah.
Yep, you'd still want to develop on a Code Sandbox locally just to make sure your changes are being saved somewhere.
Yeah.
Because then if you'll create a bunch of forks, it'll just be a little bit messy to deal with.
Gotcha.
But the easy way to do it is to start working on something in a Code Sandbox, and then when you're ready, push it up to GitHub, and then just verify that it works the same way when it's pulling from GitHub.
Cool. That is awesome. I don't know if I have much else to ask about this. What are some common pitfalls or problems that you've encountered when just when developing in general?
From an engineering standpoint or from an educational standpoint, or both?
From engineering, if I'm looking to add something, and like, is there ever a time where I would change something over here, I flip back, and like I get this funky error, and I don't know what to do?
I called out some things in the past just to make sure that, like, for example, when we're pulling a slug from a lesson, it looks to make sure things are exact, like you saw.
Right,
like,
we encountered that
things,
immediately.
There's a typo, so it
Yeah.
didn't work. So just make sure that, like, the slug in the lesson matches the slug in the course.
Okay.
Because that is how that relationship is made.
Do these care about, like, how picky is this if I do this?
That's
Right.
a YAML formatting, so it will care if it's not a list, because it expects that these video links are a list. If you only have
Okay.
one, it's just one item in a list.
I got a lot of stuff going on here, but back to data types. Symbols. I want to learn symbols. Okay, so that like still worked, but if I did this, I'm guessing it. Yeah. Okay. Where's this pre-session learning materials? Where's this text?
That is a part of the lesson template. So we also have like different React template files, which is a whole other part of the exercise, a whole other part of the platform. So if you go to the lesson template file, yeah, so this is all React. This is how this Gatsby compiles this down into Markdown, but then
So this is part of the build. So this is sort of like Gatsby build process where it's compiling out the static files.
Yep. So if you go to lesson-template.js. Yep. So you'll see here, this is, if you scroll down, that is a GraphQL query that we run. And Gatsby will then...
This is how you get each of the like YAML keys, or like you get the values,
Yep.
but by key through GraphQL. That's cool.
And notice on line 41, it looks for the slug. So because that slug before was incorrect, it wasn't finding the lesson, so it crashed out.
And we probably could have used the dev GraphQL to see that it was failing on that query.
Yes. But this lesson template exports this GraphQL query, and then above there's a lesson template React component. It consumes the output data, and then we can just pull apart things as necessary. And then if you scroll back up a little bit, on line 25, we're actually passing it into the presentational component.
Gotcha.
So this is taking down all the information from the React, from the GraphQL query, and the lesson file, which is this third tab open that you have here. This is the same file. So this consumes all of the stuff in the GraphQL query and shows it presentationally.
Cool. Yeah. So it gets all those things as props. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. And this is actually a good spot to go for the domain of possible things I could add there.
Exactly.
I would just have to know sort of the format to like have them in, whether it's a list versus something else.
Yeah.
Cool. And then, yeah, if I did want to add something more complex or interesting, I'd have to add maybe a new lesson template or page template or something.
Yeah,
or
but like
I could add just like components in here that could work, but it'd probably be a larger discussion around that, right?
yeah, but like if you're just adding a lesson, just adding
Yep.
a course, all of that is done for you, and you'd only have
Yeah.
to add like new courses file and new exercise information. And then
That's
you
cool.
you'd relate the lesson to the course, and everything else takes care of itself.
That's awesome. Cool. I think I don't have any other questions. Is there anything else you wanted to say or plug?
Awesome Learning is open source, so if you see something, open up a merge request, pull request.
Okay.
Hacktoberfest is coming up too. We're going to have a bunch of GitHub issues as well. So if you want to pitch in, if you have any ideas, come to our repo and definitely contribute.
Cool.
And if you ever want to tell about a friend, Awesome Learning is open to the world. If you have a friend, a peer, a team that wants to learn JavaScript stuff, this is the place to be.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you for having me, Jen.